What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with a look at the recent Hakes auction results. Those closed on Tuesday for the comic books and on Wednesday for the action figures. And I'm only going to cover the Star Wars action figures in this video, but in general, the offerings were kind of underwhelming, in my opinion. There were certainly some gems like the Vinyl Cape Jawa and some others, but nothing that really struck my fancy to where I had to bid on it. And I did have a couple on my watch list that I was considering, but they all went for above what I was willing to pay after accounting for the 18% buyer's premium that the winning bidder has to pay, if you win the auction. 18% plus shipping, and in some cases, state taxes, depending on where you live. But there were some stuff worth talking about, and I know a number of you did pick up some items. I thought the loose graded in particular, there were some good deals there. I didn't really cover many of those in this video, but there were some kind of older case styles in high grade, things like that, and there were a few prototypes, modern prototypes, things like that. The first one, I don't know. In my opinion, it's not something that I would buy, but basically what this is the early bird kit, but all of the baggies are open. So you're really buying, some loose figures. Obviously, there is a double telescoping saber Luke in there, and then all the paperwork and box for the early bird kit. So, it's graded. It's not something that AFA would grade, but CAS loose graded it. And they say that the figures are loose and open baggies, Luke Skywalker, telescoping saber, 70 plus. And the value code on it was $2,000 to $5,000, and the winning bid was $53.21 after the buyer's premium. So it went for above, asking price. And I guess if you look at like what sealed baggies, let's say this was a CAS 70, all sealed baggies, it probably would be closer to $7,000 or $8,000 would be my guess. Again, I'm just very rough guesses here in terms of values, but $5,300. Again, it's not something that I would personally buy, but I do think it's an interesting item. It certainly displays great. It's a nice, inexpensive or budget way to get the early bird set versus getting them all sealed. And it does include the harder to find double telescoping saber Luke. So interesting sale, but just not for me. Here was an AFA 60 Vinyl Cape Jawa mint on card. So AFA 60, the value code on that one was $5,000 to $10,000. When I say value code, that's just what Hakes estimates the final bids to be, and it did sell for $94.75. So that's going to be kind of the running theme, I think, through this, is that in general, the prices came in above, at the upper end of the value code or above. They're not for everything, obviously, but I did feel like there weren't really many good deals out there, which is what I was expecting. I was expecting to maybe pick up a mint on card, things like that, for similar to what I did in the last Hakes auction or two auctions ago, where I got a 31 or 32 back Tusken Raider for like $400. It was already graded. I mean, it was a good deal. But in general, it seems like most of the items did not, there weren't many good deals. Now, in all fairness, this Vinyl Cape Jawa had two high subscores, right? So it had a card score of 60, but the blister and the figure score were 80 and 85 respectively, archival case. So very nice item. No staining to the cape on that one. And I think it certainly presents a lot nicer than an overall AFA 60, which is probably why it came in towards the upper end of the value code. Next up, I thought this was a nice one. This was a 12-back C Vader, graded AFA 80. Value code was $1,000 to $2,000. It came in at $21.09, so again, above the upper end of the range. Now, in all fairness, that was a really nice item. I mean, that was a beauty. 80, 80, 85 were the subscores on that. Punched example, no price sticker, but that one certainly was a beauty. Next up, we had an ungraded, kind of loose, not, unused contents potentially, Boba Fett in the 12-inch line. The value code was $400 to $700. It also came in at the upper end of the range, $649. The IG-88 from the same line, that's always expensive. That one sold at $944, again, at the upper end of the value code there. And, it just seemed to be the running theme for a lot of the items in this auction, that maybe people were done with the holidays, they had some money saved up, and they just wanted to spend, It doesn't help that this was ending right when we had a major winter freeze through most of the U.S. So people were probably bored, quite honestly. I mean, it's Nashville. It's like, it's colder in Nashville where I live than in Antarctica right now. It's 1 degree right now as I make this video. So it's completely crazy. And I think maybe people just have some cabin fever. So that might be part of it. Next up, we had the 31B Rebel Soldier. This one had the molded feet instead of the painted feet. AFA 80. Punched example, no price sticker, but it is a 31 back, so that was nice. Value code was 200 to 400. That one came in at 506, including the buyer's premium. This one and the next one I'm going to show you were two that were kind of on my watch list, but they just went a little higher than I wanted to. I think because it was punched, I was like, I might go to 400. But it went above that after accounting for the buyer's premium, so it went too high. Same for this one. This one went way higher than I expected. This is the 32A Hoth Rebel Soldier, AFA 80 again. And again, my kind of price target was like, if it stays around 400, maybe 450, maybe 500 after the buyer's premium, because it's an unpunched example, no price sticker, beautiful crystal clear blister. It was tempting, right? But then it just blew past that number. It's sold at $681. So again, at the upper end of the range. The Imperial Commander was another one on my watch list. AFA 80, 41 back C, unpunched, no price sticker. That one also went above the value code at $571. So in terms of, those were kind of the big three mint on cards that I was watching personally. And all three of them went way higher than I was willing to pay. But they were certainly very nice. And I don't think they were drastic overpays or anything. If you happen to be the person that bought any of those three, I'm not saying that they're drastic overpays. It's just for me, it's like, if I'm going to spend the money, I've got to feel like it's a pretty good deal. And I didn't think that, I thought these were kind of fair market value, if not slightly above that. So just a little bit more than I wanted to spend. Here was a yellowed blister 41E Dengar AFA 80. That one came in at 415 towards the lower end of the value code. Actually, I thought that was a pretty good deal, really. The yellowing wasn't too bad on it. It was unpunched. It had a little bit of sticker residue in the upper right-hand corner, but that presents nicely. And in general, I don't care if it's a yellowed blister or a clear blister, it's hard to find Dengars on ESP cards in good shape. They were peg warmers apparently, and they just got beat up, and it doesn't help that the blister is so big that, it's just really easy for those to get beat up. So I think for a yellowed blister, $415, that's a good deal there. Here was a Palatoy AT-AT Commander on the 45A AFA 80. It says it's a yellowed blister. I mean, I don't see any yellowing other than maybe up here in this upper left. So to me, this was another good deal. This one sold for $389, which came in below the lower end of the value code there. So to me, that's a great buy for a Palatoy that really presents great. And, there's some clear blister labeled ones that sell for, double that price on eBay and elsewhere. So I thought that was a really good deal. This was another good deal, 47 back Cloud Car Pilot, the free 4-line offer, CAS 80 plus, unpunched, no price sticker. That one sold for $415. That's a price I would have paid all day long, but I already have it. So that was a really nice one. Here was the Toll Toys Mailaway 4-LOM. There were a number of baggies and mailaways. I don't think I covered many of them, but the value code on this one was 200 to 400. It was a UKG 90%, and it sold for $194. That is a great deal, and way less than what I paid for my AFA 85. I think I paid $350 or $375 for my AFA 85 Toll Toys 4-LOM, and so that was a really good deal, in my opinion. Next up is the Mailaway. This is kind of a weird contrast to me. The Toll Toys is the Australian and New Zealand Mailaway UKG 90, sells for $200. And then you have the more common one, CAS 85, that sold for $354, when these are pretty regularly available on eBay, either UKG or whatever graded, for that price or less. So I just found it interesting that people were willing to pay a little bit more for this one, which is very easy to find, whether it's ungraded or not. They paid, $154 more than they would for the Australian example. That's a lot harder to find. So maybe it's just me, but I feel like that was kind of a strange dichotomy there. Next up, I wanted to show this one. I was tempted to bid on this, but I felt like it was overgraded. This was a dark green, black eyes is how it's labeled, CAS 80. But this is the Cater Gray Factory. It looked a gray head, Cater Factory gray head Yoda. And, you can see some rubs on the hand there, some rubs on the feet down here. So I felt like it was maybe a little overgraded, But at $200, it's hard to beat that price. It sold for $195. I probably should have bid on it just to get it, but I decided not to. So, but that is the gray head Cater Factory Yoda that I just showed you guys on my 48 back Revenge of the Jedi card back that I got back from CAS. So that's what that figure looks like outside of the blister. It's a very distinctive gray head. Next up, we had an unused action figure carrying case with Yoda on it, the Empire Strikes Back. It was unused, and it came at the final winning bid, including the buyer's premium, was $162. I mean, that was a bargain of a deal. It had some wrinkles here, but that's really the only big defect that I saw. It had no tears to the vinyl at all, completely unused. So you could send that in for grading, and I think you could make a lot of money on that, because I think it would probably grade out at about an 80, and you got it for $162. I mean, I see these graded all the time go for $700 to $900. So that was a bargain of a deal there. Here, I got a couple of Vaders. We got the 77 back A Kenner Canada AFA 80. That one sold for $584. In all fairness, it was a pretty heavily yellowed blister. And then we had the 77A Darth Vader. That's just the standard US release with a much lighter tint to the blister, so not nearly as yellowed on this one. And that one sold for $713. So it shows you that even though this is the much more difficult to find Kenner Canada version, the yellowing on the blister was so much worse that somebody was willing to pay a lot more for the US version in the same grade. So I thought that was another interesting kind of comparison. The 79 back Luke Jedi AFA 80, again, these continues to be very expensive mint on card, $713 for that one. I don't know what it is. I mean, I had a 79 back. I definitely undersold it for the price I sold my AFA 85 for, but that was a beauty and only light yellowing to the blister. We had an AFA 80 mint and sealed box Rancor. That one sold for $767. I see them go all the time for $900 to $1,000 plus in this grade. So I thought that was a pretty good deal there. AFA 80 speeder bike, mint and sealed box. That one sold for $389 at the lower end of the value code. So another good bargain there for a sealed vehicle. I had a number of you that reached out about the Power of the Force line, and I had a buddy that was bidding on this one. This is the Tebow on the Power of the Force card back, AFA 80, only light yellowing to the blister on this one. And it was a punched example. The value code was $200 to $400. It sold for $830. So that one came in well above the value code. But in all fairness, I think that value code was too low, much lower. Now, apparently, this also sold back on Hakes a few years back, and it sold for like $350 or something like that. So exact same item on Hakes for $800 it sold for $830. That sold 5 or 6 years ago for less than half that price. So that was an interesting kind of growth in the price point. Here was a CAS 85 Droid C3PO. The value code was 1,000 to 2,000. That one kind of came in towards the lower end of the range at 1,259. Very heavily yellowing to the blister, but at 85, 85, 90 were the subscores on that. So that was a beauty. It was a punched example on the US card for the droids. We had the Luke Skywalker in Stormtrooper disguise ungraded, and it's probably about 75 plus or 80 grade condition. And this one is, I mean, the Luke Stormtroopers have really jumped in price, and including loose graded. There was some loose graded that sold for insane numbers that I'll cover in a video next week. But this Luke mint on card sold for $1,570 ungraded. That's just crazy to me how much that one has jumped. We had the R2-D2 pop-up saber. This was on an unpunched Power of the Force card with a little bit of sticker residue in the upper left-hand corner, but that was certainly a beauty. Probably an overall a low 80 would be my guess on this one. Fairly moderate yellowing to the blister. That's another one that blew past the value code, which I thought was too low at 700 to 1,000. The winning bid on that one was 1,562. And then finally, I didn't include all the prototypes, but I did have a couple here I wanted to show you. This one was the Geonosian War Room, and it included the production figure next to the first shot prototype. They were graded CAS 90, so it had like Pago the Lesser, Dooku, the Banking Clan. The value code on it was $400 to $700. It sold for $908. Big number on that one. And then here were the Tusken Raiders. They included the production figure along next to the first shot prototypes. That one was also graded CAS 90 plus, and that one sold for $636. There were a bunch of other kind of custom prototypes from CAS that all sold for big money, but in general, I just wanted to kind of show you a sampling from those, because those are pretty cool and not something you see on Hakes very often. Anyway, I think in general, my takeaway from this auction was that prices were up. They came in higher than I expected for a somewhat average lot of items. The items were nothing like that blew me away relative to some of the past Hakes auctions, but prices were very strong in general. They really held up their own, and it was kind of a nice, refreshing change versus some of the other recent Hakes auctions where a lot of the prices were well down. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this look at the Hakes auction results from January. Thanks again for watching, and I'll be back soon.